Hello and welcome to the channel. I'm Jeremy Cooper with Sabre Consulting. Today we're going to look at how to add an additional Aruba CX switch into an up and running rack. So a common reason you would do this is because in our case we have two switches in this rack and perhaps we have added additional drops that are running back to this IDF and we no longer have the port capacity for two switches to support that. Therefore, we have to take and add an additional switch to that stack. There's a couple of key points that have to be, or rather criteria that have to be met in order for this to work. One, it needs to be the same hardware family. So in my case, I'm using Aruba CX 6300 switches. Now, the switch that I'm going to be adding is actually a different part number, but it is a 6300M, therefore it's going to work. The other thing that has to be the same is we have to run the same firmware. So I know that on my existing stack, I'm running 10.13.1110, and I can see that by issuing show version, and you'll see that information right there. So one of the steps we will be performing on the new switch is updating its firmware. So you're going to get kind of a 2-for-1, an additional tip. Some important commands when it comes to VSF stacking, which stands for Virtual Switch Fabric, would be show run VSF, which will show us our existing VSF configuration, and we will be adding another command to make the third or the second switch the secondary conductor. The other command the other commands we'll look at is show VSF, which will show us the MAC address and the ID of our two switches. And you can see we have a conductor and a member. When we're done with this, we will have a conductor, member, and standby. Another really handy command is to take that show VSF and add topology to it, and it will give you a text-based visual representation of how your switches are connected together. And this is what you want to see. You want to see that switches 1 and 2 are connected to each other in a ring, so that if one cable, one of the stacking cables, which is just a direct access copper or DAC cable, if one of those cables fails, you want to have a backup. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to physically unplug this port 2 to port 1 cable so that we can prepare it for switch 3. Additionally, we will take and plug an Ethernet cable into the management interface of the new switch, and we're going to connect it up to one of the ports on the live switch so that we can then set a VLAN on the port, and then we'll console into the new switch and we'll statically assign the management interface so that we have IP reachability. So let's jump into that. Now let me briefly explain what we did in that nice shaky video where I'm holding my phone with one hand and trying to unplug and replug cables with the other, all the while holding the phone steady. So what we did is we took the DAC cable that is on switch 1, interface 50, or interface 150, unplug it, and then we just slide it into interface 1149 of the new switch. Additionally, I already had a patch cable that was connected to the management interface of the new switch, and we just moved it to interface 1147 on the switch that is currently online. That way we can get reachability. All right, and so the switch is booted back up to the login screen, and in order to simulate things, we did a write erase zero eyes, or no, erase all zero eyes to simulate as if the switch were completely out of the box. You just bought it, it just came in, you've unracked it and powered it on. So we're going to get the out of box experience. Quick caveat, I did remember that with the management interface doesn't allow for the introduction of a default gateway. So I have to be on the same layer 2 subnet as the device that I'm connecting to. So we're going to just use a lab VLAN 1. So I went back into port 1147 and configured it for VLAN access 1. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and I've got a ping-t running. We're going to use 192.168.10.111 as our IP, and you'll see that as soon as we get this configured, the ping is going to start replying. So what we're going to do, we're going to type admin and enter. We're then going to be challenged to enter a password. And in a lab environment, I'm going to create just a very trivial password. Obviously, if you're doing this in production, it needs to fit with your company's security policies. So now we're going to go into configure and interface MGMT, and we're going to statically assign an IP address and subnet mask and to the management interface. I will say we do a show LLDP neighbor. You will see that we do see LLDP for the management interface, and it's going to 1147 on campus MDF. Now, the command to enter an IP address in the management port is not IP address. It's either IP static or IP DHCP. And we'll do IP static and 192.168.10.111. And you can either do CIDR notation or dotted decimal notation. Either one will work. I just pressed enter, and we immediately are getting replies. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead. We're going to jump into Google Chrome here, and we're going to 192.168.10.11. We get a login screen, and of course, this is a self-signed certificate. Not a big deal in this case, and so we're going to put in our username and password. Hopefully, I didn't type it wrong. Oh, I did. Maybe I didn't put the exclamation. Okay, how embarrassing, but that's okay. I'm going to show you how to fix this. We just go back in under configure mode on the switch, and we're just going to type user admin password, and then we're going to do plain text, and well, you're going to see my password, Aruba123. Big deal. And now we'll do Aruba. I'm going to type this slow, Aruba123, enter. Now we're in. Okay, we're going to go to System and Firmware Update, and now we're going to just browse this. And now we have our new firmware. You can see it right here, and we're going to upload it. I'm going to set the timeout to 10 minutes just in case, but because we're going to the management interface, you're going to see that it has immediate high priority to the management plane. This upload is lightning fast. And as soon as that's done, we're going to, within about 10 seconds, we're going to be able to press reboot. And okay, so new firmware has been successfully uploaded, and don't you love that? All the green on this this dialog box. It definitely makes me feel good. So I click close. Now I'll go up here and reboot. Now watch this very carefully. By default, it's going to ask if you want to boot to the secondary image, but we don't want to. We want to boot to the primary image. All right. And we're going to press reboot. And as soon as it does, it's going to log us out. We're going to go back into secure CRT. We'll minimize this. Don't need this. Maximize. There we go. And here in just a minute, we're going to see the switch begin the reboot process. There it goes. And through the magic of video editing, we're going to pick back up just as soon as we're back at the login screen. And the switch is back at the login screen, so now we're going to log in, and we have to apply some configuration. We are serialed into the switch that we're adding into the rack. So I'm going to put in admin and the password we set. Okay, and here in just a moment, there we are, we're logged in. I'm going to do a show version or show ver because I want to double check that we do in fact have the correct version. We do. So now we're going to configure interfaces 1149 and 1150 to be stacking ports. We're going to do that. So config interface, VSF member 1. This is the command. Now, this is going to be member 3, but regardless of whether this is member 3, 4, 5, or 10, you're always going to start the command by VSF member 1. Next, we're going to press enter. We're going to do link 1 followed by the interface ID. I always use 1149 and 1150. If you want to use interfaces 1151 and 1152, knock yourself out. It doesn't matter. This is my process. Then we're going to do link 2, 1150 as well. Now we're going to type exit and then VSF renumber to 3. Now, as soon as we do this, the switch is going to reboot. And That is okay, or rather, it's going to start the reboot process. So I'm going to step off camera real quick, and I'm going to connect in those DAC cables. All right, snap, snap. Okay, we have them plugged in, and there we go. I didn't think to do this, but we need to do VSF secondary member 3. All right, so now when the switch comes back up, it's going to be the secondary. All right, there's really not a lot to see at this part of the process. We're just going to let the switch 3 reboot, add itself to the stack. As soon as that's done, we're going to do our verifications. Okay, so on the switch we're serialed in, we're to the system is initializing point. I'm going to hop over. This is my existing stack, and I'm going to do show VSF. And okay, at the moment it is not yet showing switch 3. Here's a handy command. Repeat delay 5, and that's going to cause the switch to every 5 seconds. I could have made this repeat delay 10, but every 5 seconds it's going to rerun that command. That way you don't feel like you have to continually rerun this command because you're waiting to see your line. Okay, we're going to continue waiting. Okay, so you can see that we now see switch 3 and it says standby booting. So the config recognized that switch 3 is going to be our standby and it's in the booting process. That means it's loading up. And I'll go ahead and press Q to get, or rather Control C to get out of that process. And you can see that I clicked over on the serial connection. We can see that we've gotten past the FIPS post check. It says started and success. If I press my up arrow, we'll see now that switch 3 is in standby mode and online. If I do a show interface brief, you'll see that I can now see the interfaces. I can see the interfaces. Now, if I do a show VSF topology, like we did earlier in the video, you'll see right now we don't have a ring. I'm going to step off camera momentarily, and we're going to go ahead and connect a final DAC cable to build our ring. Almost done. Okay, and so we'll rerun our command. It may take just a moment. There it is. There it is. We now see a text-based visual representation showing that we have a complete stacking loop. And now these interfaces are online, ready to forward, ready to configure. That is how you add a switch to an existing stack. And I want to reiterate, this process was done live without any forwarding traffic issues on switches 1 and 2. I will nevertheless counsel that you need to follow your internal company policy in terms of whether that is deemed a safe thing to do during production hours or whether you need to do this during a maintenance window. Because if you do this incorrectly, you could potentially cause an outage. So you want to follow your company protocol, your company documentation. All right. I hope you have found this video to be helpful and informative. If so, please consider like, subscribe, comment, and thank you so much.